The stars looked different from this far out. Jake Morrison stood at the observation window of the transport ship, watching the massive station grow larger as they approached. It was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The Galactic Council station floated in perfect orbit around Axis Prime, a neutral world chosen specifically because no species had ever claimed it. Jake adjusted his uniform one more time. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and short dark hair, starting to gray at the temples. 20 years in the United Earth Navy had prepared him for a lot of things, but not this. Not being humanity's first representative to an alien government that had existed for 3,000 years. Nervous? Sophie Grant appeared beside him. She was young for a communications officer, barely 30, with bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her brown hair was pulled back in a regulation bun. Terrified, Jake admitted. There was no point lying to his crew. That makes two of us. Sophie smiled. Dr. Pierce threw up twice this morning. Jake couldn't help but laugh. Alan Pierce was their xenobiologist. A thin man in his 50s who knew everything about alien life but got motion sick on shuttle rides. Is he okay? Maria's taking care of him. She says if he throws up during the presentation, she'll personally space him. Maria Flores was their diplomatic attaché, a sharp woman who had spent years preparing humanity's case for council membership. If anyone could navigate alien politics, it was her. The transport shuddered slightly as it passed through the station's docking field. Jake felt his stomach tighten. This was it. Humanity's first real chance to join the galactic community as equals, not as newcomers begging for scraps of technology. The docking process took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, they were greeted by a being unlike anything Jake had seen in person. The Veiler stood nearly 7 feet tall with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Forearms moved with fluid grace and large dark eyes studied them with obvious intelligence. Welcome, humans. I am Teshalan, High Speaker of the Veiler and current council moderator. The voice came from a translator device on the alien's chest. Please follow me. They walked through corridors that curved in ways that made Jake's head hurt. The station wasn't built for human geometry. Other aliens passed them in the halls, small insectoid creatures that chittered among themselves, massive beings that moved on 6 legs, something that looked like a floating jellyfish surrounded by mist. Sophie leaned close to Jake. Did you see that one? I think it was glowing. Stay focused, Jake whispered back, but he was just as amazed as she was. The council chamber was enormous, 12 platforms arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different species. In the center, a smaller platform waited for them. Jake realized with a sinking feeling that they would be surrounded, looked down upon from all sides. Psychological warfare, Maria muttered. They want to see how we handle pressure. Then we show them, Jake said. He led his team to the center platform, standing straight despite every instinct telling him to watch his back. The council members arrived one by one. Teshalan took her place on the highest platform. Beside her, insectoid Kresh clicked and buzzed until their translator caught up. Aquatic Sultan floated in tanks of liquid, their tentacles pressing against the transparent walls. 9 other species filled the remaining platforms. Jake studied them all. Not a single one looked like a predator. The Veiler had eyes on the sides of their heads, perfect for watching for danger. The Kresh had antennae that twitched at every sound. Even the largest species seemed built for defense or escape, not attack. They were all prey animals. Every single one. The realization hit Jake hard. Humanity had assumed they would find aliens of all types out here. Predators and prey, hunters and hunted. But looking around this chamber, he saw only one truth. They had evolved differently. Very differently. The council recognizes Ambassador Kelvin Hayes of Earth, Teshalan announced. An older man stepped forward from their group. Kelvin Hayes had gray hair and a grandfatherly smile that hid a sharp political mind. Honored council members, I come before you today to request formal membership for humanity in your alliance. What followed was 2 hours of presentation. Hayes showed Earth's history, carefully edited to emphasize cooperation and exploration. He showed human technology impressive but not threatening. He talked about human values of unity and peace. Jake watched the council members react. Some seemed interested. Others appeared skeptical. A few looked almost afraid. When Hayes finished, the questions began. A Kresh representative spoke first, its voice high-pitched through the translator. Your history shows many wars. Why do humans fight each other so much? Hayes smiled. We're a young species still learning to work together, but we've made tremendous progress. We haven't had a major war in over 80 years. Only 80 years. The Kresh seemed shocked. The Kresh have not known war for 12,000 years, Sophie whispered to Jake. 12,000 years. A Sultan representative flowed forward in its tank. Your species consumes other living creatures for sustenance. You are carnivores, omnivores, Dr. Pierce corrected gently. We eat plants and meat both. It's how we evolved. The chamber filled with nervous chittering and clicking. The translator struggled to keep up with multiple conversations happening at once. Teshalon raised two of her forearms, calling for silence. The Council understands that humans are different from us. This is not necessarily problematic. We have learned that diversity strengthens our alliance. A large armored species Jake didn't recognize spoke up. But can they control their aggressive instincts? History shows humans are competitive, territorial, and quick to violence. Maria stepped forward before Hayes could respond. With respect, Council member, humanity channels those instincts into positive pursuits now. We compete in sports and business, not warfare. We defend our territory through diplomacy, not conquest. And yes, we are capable of violence. But we choose not to use it except in defense. Choose not to use it, the armored alien repeated. But the capability remains. Of course it remains, Maria said. Just as your shells remain even though you haven't been attacked in millennia. Just as the Veiler's speed remains even though they have nowhere to flee. Evolution doesn't disappear in a few thousand years. Teshalon studied Maria for a long moment. You speak with wisdom. Tell me, Diplomat Flores, what does humanity offer this council? We have peace. We have prosperity. We have maintained both for longer than your species has existed. Why do we need you? It was the real question, the one they had been preparing for. Hayes stepped forward again. Because your peace has made you forget something important, Hayes said quietly. There are others out there, beyond your borders, in the unexplored regions of space. Not all species evolved as peacefully as yours. Not all species will respect your diplomatic sanctions and trade agreements. We have defense forces. A small, furry species protested. You have security patrols, Jake said, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to him. With respect, I've reviewed your military capabilities. You can defend against pirates and smugglers. But what happens if something worse comes? Something that doesn't care about your peace? The chamber went very quiet. Are you threatening us? The Kresh representative asked. No, Jake said firmly. I'm offering to stand with you. Humanity has something you don't. We remember what it's like to fight for survival. We know how to face danger without running. Not because we're better than you, but because we evolved differently. Let us be your shield. Let us handle the things you shouldn't have to. You want to be our warriors, Teshalon said. It wasn't a question. We want to be your partners, Jake corrected. But yes, if something threatens this council, we want to be the one standing between you and that threat. The council members looked at each other. Silent communication passed between them, too quick for the humans to follow. Finally, Teshalon spoke. The council will deliberate on humanity's application. However, I propose an alternative to immediate full membership. A trial period, Hayes nodded. We're listening. Humanity will establish a small embassy here on Council Station. You will participate in our discussions as observers. For 1 galactic year, we will learn about each other. At the end of that period, we will vote on full membership. What are the terms? Maria asked. You will follow council law while on this station. You will not carry weapons. You will not engage in violence under any circumstances. You will prove that humans can live peacefully among us. Jake felt something twist in his gut. No weapons, no violence under any circumstances. They were being asked to declawed and toothless, but Hayes was already nodding. We accept your terms. Thank you for this opportunity. The council session ended soon after. As they left the chamber, Sophie pulled Jake aside. No weapons? What if something happens? Nothing will happen, Jake said, trying to convince himself as much as her. This is the most peaceful place in the galaxy. But as they walked back to their assigned quarters, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had just agreed to something dangerous. The council wanted to see if humans could be trusted. They wanted to prove that humanity's predator nature could be controlled. Jake just hoped they wouldn't regret making that promise. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Jake stood with his team in their usual observation spot, but today was different. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. On the main display, a Kresh colony ship tumbled slowly through space, surrounded by 6 predatory-looking vessels that circled like sharks. Teshalin's forearms moved in agitation as she addressed the assembly. The situation is clear. The Draxor pirates have violated Council space and are holding 10,000 Kresh civilians hostage. We must respond. Respond how? Asked the armored representative Jake had learned was called a Thorin. We have always handled such matters through negotiation. The Draxor are not interested in negotiation, the Kresh representative said, its antennae twitching with fear. They want the ship's cargo and they will kill our people to get it. Jake clenched his fists. He had spent the last 3 months learning how the Council operated. They were brilliant at diplomacy, at trade negotiations, at scientific cooperation, but they had no idea how to deal with actual violence. We should send a diplomatic team, suggested a Sultan, its tentacles pressing against the walls of its tank. Offer them favorable trade terms if they release the hostages. That will take days to arrange, the Kresh representative protested. Our people do not have days. Sophie touched her earpiece, listening to something. Her face went white. She leaned close to Jake and whispered, Commander, I'm picking up the colony ship's distress calls. They're begging for help. The pirates are giving them 2 hours to surrender before they start killing civilians. 2 hours. Jake looked around the chamber at the council members debating and discussing. They would still be talking when those 2 hours ran out. Maria was thinking the same thing. She stepped forward without permission, breaking protocol. Council members, with respect, you don't have time for your usual process. Those people will die. Teshalan turned her dark eyes toward the humans. We are aware of the urgency, Diplomat Flores. But we must follow proper procedures. We do not simply rush into situations with weapons drawn. Why not? Jake asked. The question came out harsher than he intended. If someone is drowning, you don't hold a committee meeting about swimming techniques. You jump in and save them. Violence begets violence, a small furry council member said. If we respond with aggression, we encourage more aggression. The Draxor must see that we are civilized. Dr. Pierce shook his head in disbelief. The Draxor don't care about civilization. They're pirates. They prey on the weak because they know you won't fight back. The chamber erupted in clicks, chirps, and electronic translations. The council members were offended, Jake realized. They saw human directness as rudeness. Teshalan called for order. Humans, you are observers here. You will remain silent while the council deliberates. How long will you deliberate? Jake asked, unable to stop himself. How many Kresh have to die while you talk? Commander Morrison, Teshalan's voice was sharp. You will remember your place. Jake wanted to argue more, but Maria grabbed his arm. She was right. Pushing harder would only make things worse. The council continued their debate. They discussed sending messages to the Draxor. They talked about economic sanctions. They debated whether to send a small patrol ship to observe from a safe distance. Everything except actually doing something to help. Sophie kept feeding Jake updates. The Draxor had cut all communication with the colony ship. Power levels on the civilian vessel were dropping. The pirates were charging weapons. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes, Jake couldn't take it anymore. He turned to his team and spoke quietly. Get everyone back to the Defiance. Tell Chris to start the launch sequence. Jake, Maria whispered urgently. If we leave without permission, they'll revoke our membership application. If we stay, 10,000 people die, Jake said simply. I can live with the council being angry at me. I can't live with that, Alan Pierce nodded. I'm with you. Me too, Sophie said immediately. Maria looked torn. She had spent years working toward this moment, toward getting humanity accepted into the council. One impulsive action could destroy everything, but she also knew Jake was right. Okay, she said, but we do this smart. We ask permission first. Make them tell us no, Jake understood. He stood and raised his voice. High Speaker Teshalan, I request permission to take the UNS Defiance to assist the colony ship. The chamber went silent. Every alien eye turned toward the humans. Your ship is a military vessel, Teshalan said slowly. We do not permit military action without full council approval. Then give me approval. That process takes a minimum of 48 hours. Multiple committees must review the proposal. Those people don't have 48 hours, Jake said, fighting to keep his voice calm. They have 20 minutes. Maybe less. Commander Morrison, I understand your frustration, but we have maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years by refusing to meet violence with violence. We will not abandon our principles now. Your principles are going to get innocent people killed. Teshalan's expression was hard to read, but Jake thought he saw sadness there. Perhaps. But it is better that some die than we become what we fight against. Jake stared at her in disbelief. They would rather let civilians be murdered than compromise their pacifist ideology. It wasn't cowardice, he realized. It was something deeper. These species had evolved to run from predators, not fight them. Fighting literally went against their nature. But it was in Jake's nature, in humanity's nature. Then I'm not asking for permission, Jake said. I'm informing you that we're going. Court-martial me later if you want. Right now people need help. If you leave this station without authorization, you violate our agreement, Teshalan warned. Humanity's application for membership will be denied. I accept that. Commander Morrison, think about what you're doing. You represent your entire species. Your actions reflect on all humanity. Jake met her eyes. I know, and I want every species in this galaxy to know that when someone needs help, humans will come, even if it costs us everything. He turned to leave, his team following. Behind them, the council erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped in a dozen languages. Some sounded angry. Some sounded afraid, but none of them tried to stop him. The walk back to the Defiance felt like miles. Jake's heart pounded. He was ending humanity's chance at galactic acceptance. Future generations would curse his name for throwing away this opportunity. But he couldn't watch innocent people die. Wouldn't watch it happen when he had the power to help. The Defiance was a small ship by human military standards, a frigate designed for escort duty and patrol work. But compared to council vessels, she was heavily armed and fast. The crew of 40 was already at stations when Jake reached the bridge. Lieutenant Chris Palmer sat at tactical, his hands dancing over controls. He was young but sharp, with instincts that made him perfect for weapons systems. Weapons are online, Commander. We're ready. Get us out of here, Jake ordered. Best speed to the colony ship's coordinates. The Defiance pulled away from Council Station. Alarms blared as they left without clearance. Jake ignored them. How long to intercept? He asked. 18 minutes, the helm officer replied. Too long. They were going to be too late. Can we go faster? We're already at maximum safe speed. I didn't ask about safe speed. I asked if we could go faster. The helm officer grinned. Aye, Commander. Hang on. The Defiance leaped forward, pushing past safety limits. The ship groaned with the strain, but she held together. 15 minutes to intercept. Then 12. Sophie was at communications, her fingers flying across her console. Commander, I'm picking up weapons fire. The Draxer are shooting at the colony ship. Are the shields holding? Barely. The colony ship isn't designed for combat. Another few minutes and they'll breach the hull. Jake forced himself to stay calm. Tactical, what are we looking at? Chris pulled up data on the 6 Draxer vessels. Old military surplus from some species I don't recognize. Heavy guns but outdated targeting systems. Their formation is sloppy. They're not expecting resistance. Because they've never gotten any, Alan said from his station. He was monitoring alien biological data, though Jake wasn't sure what good that would do in a fight. The council species never fight back. The pirates are used to easy targets. Then we're about to teach them a new lesson, Jake said. Chris, I want targeting solutions on all 6 ships. Focus on engines and weapons. We disable, not destroy. Disable? Chris looked confused. Commander, these are pirates attacking civilians. I know what they are. But we're not executioners. We stop them. We don't murder them. Understood? Chris nodded, though he looked unhappy about it. Understood. Targeting engines. Maria appeared on the bridge, slightly out of breath from running. Jake, I need to tell you something. I've been listening to council chatter. They're terrified of what we're about to do. They're afraid we'll fail? No, they're afraid we'll succeed. Jake understood. If humanity proved they could handle threats through violence, it would undermine everything the council believed in. It would show that their way wasn't the only way, maybe not even the best way. 8 minutes to intercept, the helm officer called. Sophie's voice was tight. The colony ship's shields just failed. They're taking direct hits. 5 minutes, Jake said. They just need to hold for 5 more minutes. The first railgun shot crossed the distance in less than a second. It struck the lead Draxer ship's engine core with surgical precision. The explosion was small but effective. The pirate vessel lurched sideways, power failing, weapons going dark. Direct hit, Chris reported, already locking onto the next target. Their engine is gone. Good shooting, Jake said. Next target. The other 5 Draxer ships scattered, finally realizing they were under attack. But their movements were panicked, uncoordinated. They had never trained for a real fight because they had never needed to. The Defiance moved like a predator. Jake had fought in 3 wars before humanity reached the stars. He knew how to hunt. Helm, bring us around. Put us between the pirates and the colony ship. Nothing gets through. The Defiance spun, placing herself as a shield. 2 Draxer ships tried to flank them. It was a decent tactic, but executed poorly. Chris, target their weapon systems. Sophie, jam their communications. Don't let them coordinate. Jamming now, Sophie said, her hands steady despite the chaos. They can't talk to each other anymore. They're blind and deaf, Alan said, watching his screens. Look at their biology readings. Their stress levels are off the charts. They're panicking. Jake almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Then he remembered the colony ship, the holes torn in its hull, the Kresh families huddled inside praying for rescue. Target 2, Chris said. Firing, another railgun shot. Another Draxer ship crippled. This one's entire weapon array exploded in a cascade of sparks. The ship drifted, helpless. Target 3 is running, the helm officer reported. Breaking formation. Let them go, Jake said. Focus on the one still fighting. But the remaining 3 ships weren't fighting. They were fleeing. One tried to make a jump to faster-than-light travel, but its engines were too damaged. The other 2 simply ran at maximum sublight speed, desperate to escape. From start to finish, the engagement lasted 11 minutes. 6 Draxer ships. 3 disabled. 3 fleeing. 0 friendly casualties. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Chris let out a breath. Commander, we won. We survived, Jake corrected. Check the colony ship. How bad is it? Sophie worked her console, her expression tight with concentration. Multiple hull breaches. Life support is failing in 3 sections, but most of the civilians are alive. They're alive, Commander. Jake felt the tension drain from his shoulders. Get me a channel to their captain. A moment later, a Kresh face appeared on the screen. The insectoid alien was shaking, its antennae flat against its head in what Jake had learned was a sign of extreme stress. Human ship, the Kresh captain said, its voice breaking. You came. You actually came. We couldn't do anything else, Jake said. What's your status, Captain? We have injured. Many injured. Our medical facilities are overwhelmed. But we are alive because of you. The Kresh captain paused. The council said no one would help. They said we must wait for diplomatic solutions. The council was wrong, Jake said simply. We're sending over medical supplies and repair teams. Just hang on a little longer. The Kresh captain made a sound that the translator didn't catch. Then Jake realized the alien was crying. Thank you. Thank you, human. The channel closed. Jake turned to his crew. They were all watching him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe, or fear. Possibly both. Get repair teams ready, Jake ordered. And someone get me a damage report on our ship. Minor damage only, Chris reported. We barely got scratched, because the pirates had no idea how to fight a real military vessel. They were used to threatening unarmed merchants, not trained warships. Maria approached Jake quietly. We need to talk about what happens next. I know. The council is going to be furious. Furious might be an understatement. Maria pulled up a datapad showing incoming messages. We've got 43 priority transmissions from Council Station. They all say basically the same thing. Return immediately to face judgment. Will they try to arrest us? I don't think they can. They don't have the capability. But they can exile us, and any chance of humanity joining the Council. Jake nodded slowly. Then I'll take full responsibility. This was my decision. My crew was following orders. That's noble, but it won't work, Maria said. To them, you're humanity. Your actions are humanity's actions. Then humanity's actions saved 10,000 lives today, Jake said firmly. I can live with that, Sophie interrupted. Commander, you need to see this. The colony ship is broadcasting what happened. They recorded the entire fight. Is that a problem? It's going out on every council frequency. Every species in the Alliance is watching us destroy those pirate ships. Jake felt his stomach sink. Show me. Sophie put the recording on screen. It showed the Defiance approaching, small against the 6 larger Draxor vessels. Then the first shot, precise and devastating. The way the human ship moved, fast and aggressive, the pirates scattering in panic. To Jake, it just looked like a military engagement. But he tried to see it through council eyes. These were species that had evolved to run from predators, and now they were watching humans hunt. "This is going to terrify them," Alan said quietly. He had pulled up biological data on council species. "Look at these readings. Increased heart rates, stress hormones, fight-or-flight responses. Just from watching the footage." "We saved the creche," Chris protested. "We're the heroes here. We're also the thing they're most afraid of," Maria said. "Predators, hunters, species that don't run from danger, we charge toward it." "So what do we do?" Sophie asked. Jake thought about it. They could run. Take the Defiance and head back to Earth. Leave the council to their debates. Or they could face the consequences. "We go back," Jake decided. "We answer their questions. We stand by what we did." "They'll destroy humanity's reputation," Maria warned. "Maybe. Or maybe we show them that being different doesn't mean being wrong. That there's more than one way to protect innocent people." The trip back to Council Station took 6 hours. Jake spent that time helping the creche repair their colony ship and treat their wounded. Human medics worked alongside creche doctors. It was strange, these two species that had just met. But the gratitude in the aliens' eyes was universal. One young creche child approached Jake while he was helping seal a hull breach. The child held out a small object, something carved from stone. "For you," the child said in halting English. "You saved us." Jake took the gift carefully. It was warm from being held. "Thank you. You're very brave." "My mother says you're scary," the child admitted. "But I think you're nice." Jake smiled despite everything. "I can be both." When they finally docked at Council Station, an entire security force was waiting. Not armed, of course. The Council didn't believe in weapons. But they were there to ensure Jake and his team went directly to the Council chambers. The walk through the station was different this time. Before, aliens had watched humans with curiosity. Now they watched with fear. They pressed against walls as Jake passed. Parents pulled their children close. "They're afraid of us," Sophie whispered. "Can you blame them?" Alan replied. "We just showed them what humans can do." The council chamber was packed. Not just the 12 regular members, but representatives from dozens of other species. Word had spread fast. Jake and his team stood in the center platform again. But this time it felt less like a stage and more like a defendant's box. Teshalyn spoke first. Her forearms were crossed in what Jake had learned was a defensive posture. "Commander Morrison, you violated our direct orders. You engaged in violence despite your promise to remain peaceful. You have given this council no choice but to revoke humanity's application for membership." "I understand," Jake said calmly. "Do you?" Teshalyn's voice rose slightly. "Do you understand what you have done? We have spent 3,000 years building a civilization based on peace and cooperation. You have undermined that in a single day." "With respect, High Speaker, I didn't undermine anything. I stopped pirates from murdering innocent people. That's not violence for violence's sake. That's protection. You destroyed ships. You could have killed dozens of Draxor. But I didn't kill anyone. I disabled their ships, targeting only engines and weapons. Every pirate survived. They can be arrested, tried, and judged by your laws. I gave you that option." The creche representative stood. "The human speaks truth. My people owe them our lives. 10,000 creche would be dead if Commander Morrison had followed our orders." "That may be true," said a Thoran representative. "But at what cost? Now every aggressive species in the galaxy knows that the Council has teeth, that we can fight. This will invite more violence, not less." "Or it will deter it," Jake countered. "The Draxor attacked because they thought you were weak. Because you had never fought back. Now they know better." "You don't understand our way," Teshalyn said. "We are not weak. We simply choose not to engage in violence, and I respect that," Jake said honestly. "Your species evolved differently than mine. You learn to survive by avoiding conflict. Humans learn to survive by facing it. Neither way is wrong. They're just different. Different in ways that make you dangerous. Dangerous to threats, yes. To pirates and raiders and anyone who preys on the innocent. But not dangerous to you. Not to the Council. We came here in friendship, and that hasn't changed." Teshalyn was quiet for a long moment. "Show them," she finally said. The Council deliberated for 3 days. Jake and his team were confined to their embassy quarters. Not exactly prisoners, but not free to leave either. Council security stood outside their doors, polite but firm. Sophie spent the time monitoring communications. The entire galaxy was talking about humanity. Some species were calling them saviors. Others were calling them a threat that needed to be contained. A few were calling for humanity to be banned from Council space entirely. It split pretty evenly, Sophie reported on the second day. About 40% support us, 40% oppose us, and 20% are undecided. Those numbers could go either way, Maria said. She had been pacing for hours, running scenarios in her head. We need the undecided to break in our favor. Or we need to accept that we tried, Jake said. He was sitting by the window looking out at the stars. We knew this might happen when we left to help the creche. You're giving up? Chris asked, surprised. I'm being realistic. We showed the Council who we really are. If they can't accept that, then maybe this alliance isn't right for humanity anyway. Alan was reading through xenobiology reports, trying to understand the Council species better. It's fascinating, really. Every single Council species evolved from prey animals, herbivores or filter feeders, not one predator among them. What are the odds of that? Sophie asked. Astronomically low unless there's a reason, Alan said. I've been thinking about it. What if predator species don't usually make it to space? What if aggression leads to self-destruction before they develop advanced technology? But humans made it, Chris pointed out. Barely, Jake said. We came close to wiping ourselves out half a dozen times. Nuclear war, climate collapse, engineered plagues. We survived by learning to control our aggressive instincts, to channel them into competition and exploration instead of warfare. So we're the exception, Maria said. The predator species that didn't destroy itself. Which makes us either very special or very lucky, Alan replied. The Council doesn't know which yet. On the third day, they were summoned back to the Council chambers. Jake put on his dress uniform, making sure everything was perfect. Whatever happened today would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations. The walk to the chambers was different than before. Some aliens still looked afraid, but others nodded respectfully as they passed. One creche civilian actually bowed, a gesture Jake didn't fully understand but appreciated. The Council chamber was packed again. Every seat filled, every species represented. The tension was electric. Teshalon called the session to order. Commander Morrison, your team stands before us after 3 days of deliberation. The Council has discussed your actions from every possible angle. We have heard testimony from the creche you saved. We have reviewed the battle footage. We have debated long into the night about what your presence means for our alliance. Jake stood straight, ready for whatever came. Some Council members believe you are too dangerous to allow in our space. They fear that human aggression will spread, that other species will feel forced to arm themselves, that our peace will end. Teshalon paused. They are not wrong to fear this. Jake's heart sank. However, Teshalon continued. Other Council members point out that 10,000 creche are alive today because of human intervention. They argue that our peace has made us vulnerable, that we have no defense against those who do not share our values. They are also not wrong. So what's the decision? Maria asked quietly. Teshalon's dark eyes fixed on Jake. Tell me, Commander, why did you really help the creche? The truth, Jake thought about lying, about saying something diplomatic, but these aliens deserved honesty. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't, Jake said. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who saw people in danger and had the power to help. Not helping would have been worse than any punishment you could give me. Even knowing it would cost humanity membership in the Council, even knowing that. Teshalon made a gesture with her 4 arms that Jake didn't recognize. That is what convinced me, Commander. You did not save the creche to impress us or to gain political advantage. You saved them because it was the right thing to do. Because your nature would not allow you to do otherwise. I don't understand, Jake said. You are a predator, Commander Morrison. This is undeniable. Every instinct you have, every choice you make, comes from millions of years of evolution as a hunter. But you are also something else. Something we did not expect. Teshalon paused. You are a protector. The chamber went quiet. A predator that protects, Teshalon continued. A hunter that defends the weak. A warrior with morals. This should not exist, yet here you stand. What are you saying? Jake asked. I am saying that the Council has reached a decision. Teshalon stood, her full height impressive even among the other large species. We offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. Jake heard Sophie gasp beside him. Chris grabbed his arm in shock. Even Maria looked stunned. But, Tesh Allen said, and Jake felt his hope freeze, there are conditions. What conditions? Jake asked carefully. Humanity will serve as the Council's defense force. When diplomacy fails, when innocents are threatened by those who refuse to respect our peace, humanity will respond. You will be our shield against the darkness beyond our borders. Jake tried to process this. You want us to be your military? We want you to be what you are, Tesh Allen corrected. Predators with purpose. Hunters who protect instead of prey. The Council will maintain our diplomatic methods, our peaceful traditions. But when those fail, we will call upon humanity to do what we cannot. That's a lot of responsibility, Maria said. It is, Tesh Allen agreed. Perhaps too much. But we have seen what happens when we rely only on words and sanctions. The Drexer will return, if not now, then eventually. And there are others out there. Species we have not met yet. Some may be peaceful, others may not be. You're asking us to be the galaxy's guard dogs, Chris said. He didn't sound happy about it. We are asking you to be yourselves, Tesh Allen said, to use your nature for the benefit of all. Is this not what you wanted? Jake thought about it. They had come seeking acceptance, hoping the Council would see past humanity's violent history. Instead, the Council was asking them to embrace that history, to become the weapon that kept the peace. What if we say no? Jake asked. Then you may return to Earth with our gratitude for saving the creche, but without membership. We will part as friends, but not as allies. And if we say yes, then humanity becomes responsible for every life in Council space. When pirates raid, you will hunt them. When aggressors threaten, you will stop them. When the Council cannot or will not act, you will bear the burden of action. It was a trap, Jake realized. Not a malicious one, but a trap nonetheless. The Council was offering membership, but only if humanity agreed to be the thing they feared most. The violent option. The last resort. And if humans ever failed, if they ever made a mistake, the entire galaxy would blame them. Can I speak with my team? Jake asked. Of course. Jake led his people to a corner of the chamber. They huddled together, speaking quietly. This is insane, Chris said immediately. They want us to be their attack dogs. They want us to save lives, Sophie countered. Like we saved the creche. But on their terms, Maria added. Always reacting to their problems, never acting on our own. Is that so different from any military? Jake asked. Soldiers follow orders. We'd just be following Council orders instead of Earth orders. Allen was quiet, thinking. Finally, he spoke. From a biological perspective, this makes sense. Prey species are not equipped to deal with predators. They never have been. They need a protector. We could be that protector. At what cost? Chris asked. At the cost of being misunderstood, Allen said. They will always fear us, even as they rely on us. We will be the necessary evil, the violence they need but wish they didn't. I don't want to be evil, Sophie said quietly. We're not evil, Jake said firmly. We're human, and humans have always protected those who couldn't protect themselves. That's not evil. That's heroic. But will they see it that way? Maria asked. Or will they see us as trained attack animals? Jake thought about the creche child who had given him the carved stone. About the civilian ship full of families who were alive because humans had intervened. About all the other civilians in Council space who might need help someday. I think, Jake said slowly, that we should accept, not because we want to be their weapon, but because people need protection and we can provide it. The Council isn't wrong. They are vulnerable, and there are threats out there they can't handle. But we can, Chris said, understanding. We can, Jake confirmed. So the question is, do we walk away because we don't like the terms? Or do we accept that this is the price of membership? They all looked at each other. Sophie spoke first. I say we accept. Those creche families deserve to live. So does everyone else in Council space. Agreed, Allen said. I'm in, Chris added, though he still looked unhappy. Maria was last. This is going to define humanity for centuries. Every species in the galaxy will see us as the Council's enforcers. Our children will inherit this role. Our children will inherit a galaxy that's safer because we're protecting it, Jake said. I can live with that, Maria smiled slightly. Then I guess we have a deal. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Council. Jake stood on the observation deck of Council Station, watching human patrol ships drift by in perfect formation. 5 vessels now protected Council space, small compared to Earth's full navy, but more than enough to deter pirates and raiders. It had been a strange 6 months. Humanity had proven themselves time and again. 3 pirate attacks stopped. 2 territorial disputes resolved with minimal force. 1 rescue operation that saved a Sultan research station from a reactor meltdown. The Council species were grateful, but that gratitude always came with an edge of fear. Admiral Morrison, a voice said behind him. Jake still wasn't used to the promotion. Admiral sounded too important for what he really was, a soldier doing his job. He turned to see a young human officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, holding a data pad. "What is it, Ben?" New assignments came through. "The Council wants us to establish permanent patrol routes through the outer sectors. They're worried about increased smuggling activity." "Smart," Jake said. "The pirates are getting bolder since we pushed them out of the inner systems. They're testing our reach. There's something else, sir. Earth sent a message. They want to send more ships. Build up our defensive capabilities," Jake frowned. "We have enough ships for Council space. Any more and it starts looking like an occupation force." "That's what I thought too, but Command says the Council species are asking for more protection. They're starting to rely on us." "Maybe too much," Jake muttered. He took the data pad and reviewed the requests. Station defense assignments, convoy escorts, border patrols. The list kept growing. "Tell Earth we'll take 2 more ships. But that's it. I don't want the Council thinking they can just outsource all their security to us." Ben nodded and left. Jake returned to watching the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility that never quite went away. Sophie found him an hour later. She had been promoted too, now serving as Chief Communications Officer for the entire human contingent. Her job was to help Council species understand humans better, to bridge the gap between predator and prey. "You look tired," Sophie said. "I am tired," Jake admitted. "Every time we solve one problem, 3 more appear. The Draxor are regrouping in the unexplored regions. Some Council species are protesting our presence, and Earth wants to send more ships." "The Council is scared to be without us now," Sophie said. "They've tasted safety and they don't want to give it up. But safety shouldn't mean dependence. They need to learn to defend themselves. That's what Dr. Pierce is trying to do." Sophie pulled up a report on her data pad. He's been working with a Valar scientist on overcoming prey instincts, teaching them that fighting doesn't mean becoming monsters. "How's it going?" "Slowly. Evolution is hard to fight, but he's making progress. A few Kresh volunteers have actually started training in defensive combat, not to hunt but to protect themselves and others." Jake smiled. "That's good news. There's more." Sophie's expression grew serious. "We picked up some strange signals from beyond Council space. Deep space in a region that's never been explored." "What kind of signals?" "Military grade. Ship movements, encrypted communications. Someone is out there, Admiral, and they're organized." Jake felt his instincts sharpen. "Show me." They moved to a tactical station where Sophie brought up the sensor data. It showed patterns of movement, coordinated and deliberate. Not pirates or smugglers. "Something bigger. How far out?" Jake asked. 3 weeks at maximum speed. Maybe less if they're coming toward us." "Have you told the Council?" "Not yet. I wanted to check with you first." Jake thought about it. 3 weeks. Enough time to prepare or panic, depending on how the Council reacted. "Let's gather more data before we sound the alarm. I want to know what we're dealing with." But before they could do more analysis, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Sophie's console lit up with priority alerts. "What's happening?" Jake demanded. Sophie worked frantically. "Multiple ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, right at the edge of Council space. They're not responding to hails, and how many ships?" 15. "No, 20. Admiral, they're big. Bigger than anything in the Council fleet." Jake's blood ran cold. "Get me to the command center, now." They ran through the corridors, Jake's mind already running tactical scenarios. 20 ships appearing without warning. It could be explorers, but his instincts said otherwise. This felt like an invasion. The human command center was chaos when they arrived. Chris was already at tactical, pulling up data on the unknown ships. Maria was on comms with the Council. Alan was analyzing biological data from the vessels. "Report," Jake snapped. "Unknown fleet holding position at the border," Chris said. "They've made no aggressive moves, but they're also not responding to any communication attempts." "The Council is convening an emergency session," Maria added. "They want you there in 10 minutes. I'll be there in 5. "Alan, what do you have?" Alan looked pale. Admiral, I'm reading massive life signs on those ships. Hundreds of beings per vessel, and the biological markers are unlike anything in Council databases. Predators? Jake asked. I don't know yet. But they're big. Whatever species this is, they're physically larger than humans. Jake processed this information quickly. An unknown fleet. No communication. Large, organized, and potentially aggressive. This was exactly what the Council had been afraid of. Chris, I want our entire fleet on alert. Battle stations, but hold fire unless attacked. Maria, get me a channel to the Council the moment they're ready. Sophie, keep trying to make contact with those ships. Use every language and frequency we have. They all moved to execute his orders. Jake stood at the center of the command room, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline before combat. But this was different. This wasn't pirates or raiders. This was first contact with a potentially hostile species, and if it came to a fight, humans would be outnumbered 4-1. The Council session was tense. Every species present looked terrified. They had grown comfortable with human protection against small threats. But this was something else entirely. What do they want? The Thorin representative demanded. Why won't they communicate? We're trying every method of contact, Sophie reported via hologram. So far, no response. Then we must assume hostile intent, Teshalin said. Her forearms were trembling slightly. Admiral Morrison, can you defend against such a fleet? Jake chose his words carefully. If they attack, we'll fight. But I can't promise victory against an enemy we know nothing about. We're outnumbered and they have the advantage of surprise. So we are vulnerable, a Sultan said, tentacles writhing in distress. Even with human protection, we are not safe. No one is ever completely safe, Jake said. But we're not helpless. We have options. What options? Teshalin asked. We could evacuate the nearest stations, pull back to defensive positions, buy time to learn more about who they are. Or we could go out there and make contact in person, show strength without aggression. You want to approach them? The Kresh representative sounded horrified. That could trigger an attack, or it could show we're not afraid, that we're willing to talk but ready to fight. Jake leaned forward. Look, every first contact in human history has gone one of two ways. Either both sides are too afraid to communicate and something bad happens, or someone has the courage to extend a hand in peace. I vote for option 2. The Council debated for precious minutes while the unknown fleet waited at their border. Finally, Teshalin made a decision. Admiral Morrison, you will take your flagship and approach the unknown vessels. Attempt contact. But if they show any hostility, you are authorized to use all necessary force to protect Council space. Understood. Jake stood. If I may make one suggestion. Yes? Send a Council representative with me. Show them that we're united, that humanity speaks for more than just ourselves. Teshalin considered this. You would bring one of us into danger? I would show them what we're fighting for, that we're not just human ships defending empty space. We're protecting a civilization worth protecting. After a moment, the Kresh representative stepped forward. I will go. My people owe humanity a debt. Let me repay it by standing beside you. Jake nodded with respect. Thank you, Representative Kren. Let's go meet our neighbors. The flagship UNS Valiant approached the unknown fleet slowly, giving them every chance to respond. Jake stood on the bridge, the Kresh representative Kren beside him. The insectoid alien was trembling but stood firm. Any change? Jake asked. No response, Sophie reported. But they're tracking us. Their weapons are powered but not targeting. Keep trying all frequencies. They close the distance. 1 kilometer. 500 meters. Close enough now to see details on the ships. They were sleek and dangerous looking, built for war. Then finally a response. A face appeared on the view screen. Humanoid but not human. Scaled skin, sharp features, eyes that reminded Jake of a hawk. The being studied them for a long moment before speaking. The translator caught it immediately. You are the humans. The predators who protect the Council of Prey. Jake felt everyone on the bridge tense. I am Admiral Jake Morrison. May I ask who you are? I am War Commander Tekrin of the Vakra Empire. We have watched your council for some time. Watched them hide behind diplomacy and fear while the galaxy moves on without them.